Hello everyone, and welcome to my workroom. I'm having a bit of a slow morning, beating a little shell and thinking about the project that I'm gonna share today. I thought it would be fun to show my process of upcycling a garment because I recently went thrifting and have a bunch of shirts to work on basically. So this is the shirt I'm going to be working on. It's a white cotton blouse. It's 100% cotton, which is something I look out for when I'm thrifting clothes. And today I want to embroider a butterfly or moth on it. Before I start drawing, I'm going to look through some of my reference books. I have a lot of different nature books. I really love this Vintage Reader's Digest one. I think reference images are great if you're starting out. It's like a jumping off point and you can use your own drawing style to make it unique and your own artwork. Looking through books like this definitely sparks my inspiration, and it kind of reminds me just how plentiful nature is and full of really cool animals and plants, and I want to stitch them all. This encyclopedia of butterflies, which I also thrifted, has fantastic reference images, and I ended up choosing the comet moth. I thought the color story was really great for fall, and here's a little one that I'm gonna riff off of. Alright, so I'm gonna get started. I'm using a classic ballpoint pen to draw on my shirt. I just basically go for it when I'm doing upcycled garments. For this project, I want to be really good and keep it centered, so I am going to break out a ruler. I like drawing freehand because of the imperfections that are just going to happen with your own hand style. But there has been many a time when I have not used rulers and, started drawing something only to find that it was like an inch off center and just looked kind of bad. But yeah, as you can see, I'm also not being too technical. I'm just kind of placing my ruler at the center and then using the markings as a guide to draw the center of the moth. I hope you can see my drawing all right. I know it's kind of tricky. I would like a bolder line, but I didn't want to use a marker because the fabric is pretty thin. It's like a shirt cotton. If you're looking for a pen or a drawing utensil that is less permanent than a ballpoint pen, fabric stores, I think, sell different kinds of disappearing ink pens. There's also always Taylor's chalk, and I used to use Prismacolor colored pencils because they're very soft and they do seem to, in my experience, wash out of garments. If you make a mistake, it'll come right out in the wash. But yeah, I figured I'd show you guys what my method is, which is kind of haphazard and just going for it with a pen. The reference photo that I'm looking at, I'm kind of using it as just a jumping off point. The moth in the photo has its wings a little bit shut, so I'm coming up with my own shape that's somewhat similar to it, but a lot more open. And as you can see, it is kind of messy, a little imperfect, but anything that I want to cover up, like any lines that are a bit of a mistake, I'm going to be covering it up with thread, so it's not too much of a problem in my eyes. Right now I'm drawing in the details. These are kind of the fun bits that add character to my little moth. One of my favorite things about embroidery is that even if you're kind of beginning your journey with drawing, it always comes out really cute. Like, you don't have to have exceptional drawing skills to make really cool embroidery. I say embrace a wonky drawing. I think it's what makes hand embroidery very special and what sets it apart from all the, similar stuff that you find in a store these days. So I'm just about done with the base drawing of the piece, and we can move on to looking at the different threads that we're going to use. I had intended for the majority of the moth to be a bright yellow, but I don't have quite enough thread to use all the same shade. But I do think these are all similar enough where maybe the top wings are going to be bright yellow and then the bottom wings will be filled in with the kind of softer butter yellow. Next I've got some different thread colors for the details. I've got a rusty orange, some brighter oranges, some shades of red. These are kind of my clumps of yarn. I'm trying to make it a point to not neglect my clumps. It'd be better if I didn't store them as clumps, but you know, it is what it is. I've got some shades of brown I'm going to use also for details. Also wanted to point out that I think almost all of these threads are DMC. That's just coincidental. I don't necessarily have a preference. DMC seems to be the most available embroidery floss. Even when I come across embroidery floss secondhand, just tends to be DMC. That's what's everywhere. I've got some cream threads. I also have some coppery and caramel shades of brown. These are all also going to be used for the details of the moth. And I've got a little black thread, which I'll also use for details. Yeah, so I guess since we've got all of the colors that we'll be using, we can get started. My favorite kind of needle to use for embroidery is a 2-inch needle. I think they're found in craft stores as crewel needles. Of course, we need some kind of cutting utensil, like these are nippers, and I also have scissors. And then, of course, there's also the embroidery hoop. This one is a 12-inch one, but depending on the size of what you drew, you could use one that's smaller maybe, that fits better. Mine I have to move around because the moth is large and kind of in a weird position that I'm going to have to move the hoop around as I do the separate parts of the moth. I've got it on there tight, but not too tight because I don't want to damage the shirt fabric. When I work on an embroidery piece, I like to start with the details, and then afterwards, if there's a background that's like a main color, do that last. Well, actually, very last would probably be the outline, but regardless, I want to point out I'm starting with the details. It helps me to break it down into the little sections based on colors, so yeah. And also I was about to say that I like to start at the edges, but oftentimes I'll start in the center. I don't know, I guess it's kind of random, my choice of where I'm going to start the project. For sake of this video, I'm starting at the edge of the wing, and my reasoning behind that is that I want to get as much of the portion of this wing that's in the hoop done so that I can move the hoop to the side of the shirt that is not being stretched. But yeah, I'm basically lining a portion with dark brown, and once I'm done, tying off a little knot. And moving on to the inner details of the wings, we're starting with a little black dot in the center of that kind of eye, and then also the top portion of the thorax of the moth. I think I like to start with the details because they're very finicky and it's often kind of tiny little spots, and then once those are finished and out of the way, it's kind of okay, the home stretch of just filling it in with yellow, I can be a little more mindless as I'm working and kind of almost go into a meditative state. Or I can watch a movie, or I can listen to a podcast. While I'm working, it's fun to kind of, multitask, especially because embroidery is just really long hours of sitting down. I definitely appreciate the moments where I don't have to pay attention as much and I can kind of check out and also maybe get inspired with a film. This video is my first YouTube video, and I'm excited to kind of, start this endeavor of making YouTube videos of tutorials, but it is still very fresh for me, and I even I didn't feel comfortable making an intro because I feel I'm just still getting used to talking in front of a camera and even just recording myself. But I figured I'd say while I'm stitching here, please feel free to leave some comments below with any questions you have about what I'm doing, or I don't know, requests for videos. I'm really open to any suggestions. Here in the video I'm showing you that I'm going to be doing these portions of the little stripes on the wings in this caramel brown. But yeah, okay, back to the idea of commenting. I was hoping that starting a YouTube video would inspire some community. I only operate with Instagram currently with social media. Now I'm, trying to add YouTube, but Instagram's so overwhelming, and I don't see it as much of a space for community the way I feel that YouTube could be. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm looking forward to interacting more and kind of being a resource for people who are trying to learn embroidery or who want to take their embroidery to the next level. But I also mean that this is very new for me too, and I have a feeling these videos are going to be a little bit chaotic, or maybe not as easy to follow along as perhaps ones that I make a couple months from now. But just keep me posted on what you think of it and what kind of stuff I could add or take out, and I will be down to make those changes. Sometimes in the process of working, I realize extra drawing lines would be helpful. And I think I'm going to be doing a little rusty red. The orange is going to be the main part, and then that little crescent is going to be a cream color. And then the whole thing's going to get outlined eventually with a thinner caramel brown. The drawing that I made created these segments that I like to use as guides for filling in, and then I go in the opposite direction of with stitches. I want the body of the moth to be kind of shaded with maybe a darker portion going out to a brighter yellow, so I'm adding a little depth with my pen. It's hard to tell in this video, but they are slightly different shades of yellow that I'm striping, and I am going to go in with some shades of caramel and orange and a orangey yellow. I love how the bodies of moths are usually very fluffy and fuzzy, so I'm trying to emphasize this by layering my threads, and they're slightly different shades, very, very ever so slight, but I think it adds dimension, and yeah, I just wanted that fuzzy little body. Alright, so I'm threading my needle with the main color of the background of the wings. That is this canary yellow, and it's an exciting moment because once you add the background, it ties in the piece and you get an idea of what everything's going to look like. At least that's how I feel. I don't know if you can tell, but Drew is slinking underneath while I'm working and setting up camp on top of all of the thread supplies, but you know what, I do love having a studio buddy while I'm working, so I will allow it. At this point in the day, I was getting tired of sitting down on the ground and working, so I moved over to my work table where I could sit in a chair and do a little bit more stitching, filling in those lines of the wings. I'm trying to be more mindful of like the style of how I'm sitting while I'm embroidering, because it does take a toll on your body, and one of my workday rituals, usually in the morning, I'll try to do some yoga or stretching so that I offset some of the pains of like hunching over and stitching in the day, but it's also kind of just like trying to make a point to sit up straight and take breaks often. I finished the first wing. I haven't embroidered an outline yet, but I would prefer to do that all at the end. So I'm moving the hoop over to get the other wing, and I'm going to embroider it in the same way I did the first one. Alright, it's the next day and I am jumping straight into the project and starting out basically the same way that I began the upper wings, with the dark brown detail that's on the top wings above, but on the lower wings below and to the side. A lot of the stuff on the lower wings is going to be very similar to the upper wings. I'm kind of, repeating the same thing, maybe with slight differences in color depending on what thread is like at hand. For some reason, I don't think I used the bright orange on these little lower eyes. It's a pinkish color and the rusty orange with the black center, and then a creamy little crescent moon. Now, as I'm finishing up this first lower wing, I'm going to repeat the process on the second side, and as you see, I have finished, and I'm going to start an outline with this kind of goldish caramelly shade of thread. It's actually in the same shade as the 2 rows of scallops on the upper wings. But I am separating it into 3 strands each. The whole butterfly I did in 6 strands of embroidery floss, which is how the embroidery floss is sold, but now I'm separating it into half the amount, which would be a bit more of a delicate line. I like to do that for details. I hope I said that in a way that makes sense. I got a little tongue-tied over there. So for the rest of this, to finish it up, I'm just going to outline it, and then I'm also going to go through the ridges of the wings. I don't always add lines or outlines, like you can see the definition of the stitches without them, but I like what it adds to it. I think it kind of takes it to the next level, and it's like a finalization of the project. It's exciting to be almost done with something like this. You know, it took a long time. I think this is day 3 when I'm adding the outline after a long day of working yesterday and the day before, but you know, we're almost done. So as I finish up these last bits of outlines, I am gonna end the moth by stitching the antenna, which are feathery antennas, and that's a really fun stitch to do. It's the same technique I use as some like ferns that I sometimes do. It's like a ladder stitch with tiny little stitches all around it. And I don't know if you can tell, but for the antenna, the thread is also reduced to 3 strands instead of 6 strands. And then right now I'm like threading a bit of green onto my needle to add like eyes. It's not necessary, but it's a cute little touch that I like to add. Yeah, so that's it. That's the project. I finished embroidering moth and removing the hoop, and I like to iron out the project when I'm done. Really, most of the time I'm always using a natural fiber like cotton or linen, so it's safe to embroider. The thread that I'm using is also cotton. Alright, here's the comet moth top all finished and ironed out. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that it was helpful. Please let me know what you think. I'm looking forward to making more videos of projects and, you know, interacting with you guys. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again. Bye guys.